entrepreneur extraordinaire of the DC metro area. I've been bragging on you. I'm going to let you brag on yourself a little bit. So tell everyone at home a little bit about what you do, who you are, where you're from. Get us up to speed really quick.
Yeah, so I'm Tiana Wong, and I basically am a community builder. I'm an investor and chairman of 2 tech companies. And originally I'm from New Jersey. My parents are both immigrants. Went to school in New Jersey, went to college in New Hampshire, and came down to DC to... You're from New Hampshire?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where?
Well, I went to UNH.
Okay, I'm Dartmouth, so Hanover, New Hampshire. And moved to DC when... Well, I actually did an internship here for Bill Bradley, my senator from New Jersey, back in the day. Really liked it. I did a startup. I had 3 companies in college. I had a startup right after school. Didn't work out. Got into law school here, so came down here, deferred law school 3 times, wound up getting a real job in commercial real estate, went to law school, dropped out of law school, and then wound up starting a business that wound up growing to be one of the largest call center companies in the U.S. And we had about $80 million in revenue, 2,200 employees. Sold it in 2003 to a public company, Affiliated Computer Services, which was then bought by Xerox. And the company now is about $1.5 billion in revenue, maybe approaching $2 billion in revenue. It's part of Conduit, which is a spin-off from Xerox.
Right.
Yep. So that brings you up to speed a little bit. I'm a community builder because of the CONNECTpreneur community.
Yes.
Which we've been doing for almost 7 years.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
So let people know what exactly this is. This is it is the premier event in the DC metro area for entrepreneurs to get together. So talk a little bit about what that is, why you started it, and
I would even say, so we've done 28 events. We do 2 in Baltimore, 2 in Bethesda, and 2 in Northern Virginia every year. We've had over 6,000 people attend over the last 6 years. It is 70% of our attendees rank it the #1 tech and investor networking event in the Mid-Atlantic. So
beyond DC.
We're getting out of the DMV.
I mean, you're getting big time here.
Well, we have people flying in from the Valley, Albuquerque, New York, Boston, Arizona, Florida. I mean, so it's really a lot of people coming in from out of town now.
Right.
Maybe 10% of the audience is coming from out of town. Maybe 15%.
And what was the reason for starting the event? What was the thought process?
Yeah, we had very humble. You know, when we started the event, we just wanted to create an event to promote our tech company. So we brought customers and ex-customers and co-investors, and we had already been doing this a little bit. You know, with groups of 20 or 40, and then someone said, why don't you just do a big event every quarter instead of doing these monthly events? So that's what we did, and it wound up growing and growing, and now it has its own identity. It's had its own website, CONNECTpreneur.org. It's got its own Facebook page. It's got its own Twitter handle.
And when is the next event?
Next event is November 16th in Baltimore at the Hyatt Regency Inner Harbor. We will have 400 plus people there. We've got a great lineup of presenters, speakers. The one after that will be December 13th at the Marriott Falls Church in Fairview Park. Fairview Park Falls Church.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of events at that Marriott.
And
about 500 people at that one.
Oh my God. Well, the whole point, or one of the points of these sessions, is for people to be able to network. And so for those who are thinking about coming, or either at the November event or the December event, how do you make the most of this event before, during, and after the event in terms of networking, or just really getting the most meat on the bone of that event?
Yeah, so I think it's not just our event, it's any event. I think if you go out to meet people and connect with people and engage with them, you should do your homework. And homework means, you know, finding out what the audience is going to look like, who are likely people that will be there, what types of people will be there. If you know specific names, then you can see, you know, who you personally want to meet with. You know, do some homework on them, go on their LinkedIn, go on their social media accounts, go on Google, find out who they are, and come up with a compelling reason to get their attention and engage with them. So I would do that. I'd get there early. Always get there early. Generally with networking events, ours is a breakfast networking event, but for afternoon networking events, I always tell my guys, don't eat. Don't eat at the event. So eat before you go. So that you're not spending time, I'm hungry.
Right.
And
or having awkward conversation when you're trying to do that whole thing.
Right, you're holding 3 plates
and you have the plate on top of the cup, and you can't shake hands, you can't exchange cards.
So I always tell people, eat before you go to a networking event, so you're not hungry when you get there and you can work.
Right.
And then the other ones, don't drink.
Right.
Because that clouds your thinking.
Right.
You can drink afterwards, but just don't drink in a professional environment. I'm not a big fan of drinking. But at our event, just do your homework. We publish the list of attendees at every event on our website, CONNECTpreneur.org.
Mm-hmm.
We have the program books from all of our prior events and unlike most event organizers, we actually put the name, title, and company name of every attendee in the book.
That's good.
So you can go and look at the last 4 or 5 events in Virginia, see we're in Baltimore, the last one we did in April, see who attended, and maybe there's a good chance they're going to come back.
Right.
Type of person.
Right. I really enjoy networking events where, one, they either provide you social media tiles or information to put out there. So for those of you who are event people or networking people, anytime you can give someone like myself, who is very active on social media, a tile that I can either alter to say that I'm attending the event or speaking at the event, or just even like a sticker that I can put on my social media platforms, that's not only good for your brand as the event, but also their brand as a person showing their connectivity. But I also love when I go to networking events and they color code badges. I love it when they, I know if I look across the room and I see somebody with a blue badge or a green badge, that there's somebody I want to do business with. Right. And so I don't waste precious time talking to somebody that's maybe not in the industry that I'm looking for.
Yeah, we do both. We have, most of our events we color code the badges. We have speakers and sponsors and presenters and investors.
Right.
But we've also experimented with no color coding and have had almost no feedback when we didn't do the color coding.
Really?
So for our group, it's not so much. I think the investors, some of them don't want to be flooded by
sure, I can understand.
For capital, a lot of founders and entrepreneurs.
Right.
For them, it's convenient to see who's an investor.
Right.
But I think I agree with you though. It makes you more efficient for sure.
But when you have very limited time, you want to make the most of it.
That's right.
How do you choose your speakers for the event?
Well, we try to get newsmakers, so people who are in the news that have just sold the company or just took a company public or just about to take a company public, or just wrote a book.
Right.
Like we had Terry McAuliffe right before the election. We had Steve Case right after he wrote the book.
Right.
We've had Seth Goldman from Honest City a couple times after he wrote a book.
Great.
And then we had, so he did a book signing for us. Then we had Seth again, I think after he closed the Coca-Cola deal or whatever. So yeah, we've tried to do that. Duke Chung right after he sold to Microsoft. We had Rick Rudman literally 5 days after he sold Vocus, which is a public company.
Right.
We had Joe Payne about a week before he sold his company to Oracle for almost $1 billion. So so it's a lot of it is trying to get it timed at the right time.
Right. And make it the most.
Yeah, I mean, these are busy people, so it's really hard to, as you guys who do events know, it's really hard to get busy people to agree to a date.
Right.
Way in advance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to go to a break really quick and to allow him to catch his breath and for us to get situated. But when we get back, we're going to talk about personal brand and social media and living our lives online. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Great. Thank you. We're live on Facebook Live, though, right?
Only when that's live.
Oh, and then
you see. We're live on it. So
this is Frances Reimers.
Hi.
And Frances has this incredible podcast. I'm so happy and honored to be on here. Thank you so much.
I was really worried. I was like, they have fallen off the face of the planet.
No, the traffic was so bad.
It's still bad. Traffic is still bad right now as we speak.
It is.
And Waze just took me like the weirdest route.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I was on streets I didn't even
You were right
existed.
there. You said to budget more time than Waze.
Yeah. I knew Waze would be wrong.
During rush hour in
Waze
Washington,
never wrong.
I was at 50%.
I had a meeting out in Tyson. I live in Alexandria. My office is in Alexandria. Meeting in Tyson's, and if you have Mac, if you have something on your calendar, it'll tell you, you leave at X time, so you make it. and Matt came on, and they were like, "You should leave at like X time," and I was like, "Are you serious?"
Wow.
And I got on Waze, and sure enough, like everything was red. Everything was red.
And we should have budgeted parking, so it took us a while to find the parking.
Yes.
And then once you park, you have to pay for it. And
It's a nightmare. Where did you guys park?
Like a few blocks down.
Oh.
I just saw her on the street parking her car. I parked my car in the nearest spot, and I didn't realize we were many blocks away. But she had already told me she got here earlier and drove around. The street right behind us is Euclid Street. There's always parking. Yeah, there's always Well, the
parking.
university right here. I guess there's a lot of demand for parking.
There is, but for some reason, that particular block of Euclid Street.
Is there a connection between Howard and your show?
No.
Okay.
Is there? I mean, not my show personally,
Just a
but
physical one.
just physical.
Do a lot of Howard students use the studio here?
Yeah.
That's great. I
I've been here for 20 years,
So
since I was
convenient,
in junior high school. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go to Howard too?
Nah, my mom did. She graduated in 07. In fact, she's in public relations for Howard Gospel Choir.
Oh.
She's been
Okay.
singing. Once you graduate from Howard, you're not supposed to be singing at Howard. They gave her an exception.
All right, so we'll go back in 10.
Yep.
Thank you. And so so we'll come in earlier in the show when I was egerly awaiting your arrival. I talked a lot about brand and how entrepreneurs can build their brand.
Yeah.
And I talked a little bit about not getting so wrapped around the axle about the logo and your tagline. And, it's more about living and breathing the product in which you're.
Yeah.
You
have a good brand.
Yeah, I live and breathe my brand every single day. So talk. I mean, but I'm at infancy. I mean, literally, I just started my company less than a year ago. So talk about, and I'll
But
bring
let's
this
talk
up.
personal's been around for a while.
You hear him saying?
No, this is new too. All of this is new. All of this is brand new. Yes. Does she allow you to call her Pammy? Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
I knew her when she was known as Pammy.
Yeah. That's back in when Lionel Richie days. Shh, we're going live.
Alright.
Okay.
Corey.
Y'all sign up.
Okay. Alright. 3, 2.
And we're back. Thank you for joining us. Now, those who have been tuning in since the top of the show, I talked a lot about entrepreneurs and their brand, and I referenced a few things that not to get hung up on as you're building your brand as an entrepreneur, small business owner, but you can take it to, we can arch this story to when you have a company and it's grown and it's big. Talk about a little bit about the evolution of your brand and how that has changed throughout the course of all of these businesses and different opportunities that you've had, especially if there's any takeaways for people at home that are at the beginning
Yeah,
of
I
their
mean,
journey.
that's a great question. And I wasn't cognizant of my own brand probably for many, many years until just recently, relatively recently. And I think the brand, in my mind, is just what people say about you or think about you when you're not in a room, So I was always known as a guy that works really hard, In my industry, we were known as a really high-quality company and really care about the customer. So a lot of things that I want to be known for and that I really believe in was pretty consistent with what people thought about us. And then I think with the advent of social media and our activity increasing on things like Facebook page and having our own Facebook page and activity on Twitter and Instagram, I think that we started focusing more on making sure the brand was very consistent with what we stand for. And I think that it evolved sort of with no intention at all. It just kind of happened. And then as time went by, we got more and more aware of things. And then now we're trying to do the best we can to manage the brand.
And when you say more and more aware of things, any concrete examples of what you were starting to become aware of? Was it the feedback that you were getting? Was it a shift in how people were responding to you in person, online? What?
Yeah, it was all of that.
Okay.
Just a lot of responses on LinkedIn, a lot of messages, emails, cold responses, people that were looking for advice. CONNECTpreneur had a lot to do with this, I think, because that kind of put us at the center of this big community, and people started viewing us as community leaders and people that could help startups achieve things and connect people with investors. And I think that sort of also helped accelerate the brand becoming what it has become, and just being more recognizable in the community and stuff like that we didn't actively go out and look for, but it happened, and not saying that it's bad or turning it down at all. It's quite an honor, but just a lot of that stuff just happening has made us more aware that way. Right.
And I mean, would there be knowing what you know and this evolution of what you're learning about brand as you go along, is there any particular thoughts or advice that you would give to people who are just at the beginning of their journey, now having hindsight being 2020?
Yeah, I would say there's two things. Know yourself and be yourself. Right. So you have to know yourself first. So what do you really care about, and what are you trying to do for your customers, and what are you focused on? And then you have to be yourself. Like, don't be fake, because people know when you're being fake, and no one wants to deal with fake people. Plus, it's difficult to be fake. It's a lot easier to just be yourself and talk the way you normally talk, and dress the way you normally dress, and act the way you normally act. And, there's so many people out on social media with different characters and different traits and different ways of speaking, and they're all successful, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Because they're real, they're themselves. So those are the two things I would say: sort of know yourself and be yourself.
Right, and it's people. Authenticity, I think, is starting to become a little bit of an overused word. We're gonna have to. I think we're gonna have to find a new word to mean authentic. But authenticity is extremely important.
Yeah, just like being natural.
Right.
Or being like, you sent me this list of questions and I didn't even read it because I don't want to read it, because then I have to think about what I'm going to say. I want to just react to it in the moment. Yeah.
Which is
me.
Which is you, and that's awesome.
But there are many people that would prepare and they study for 3 hours, and that's them. So that's fine. But that's not me to study all that stuff and have all these conceptions, things I'm going to say.
Well, because you're not a canned statement person. Whereas,
I don't know.
but I've had people come in to be on the show, and they have this sheet, and they've literally filled it out from top to bottom. Yeah. And so everybody handles it. But the other thing that I always stress with athletes, and particularly that I work with, is authenticity is so important, because you can craft everything online. Everything online can be glossy pictures and well-crafted statements. But the second somebody meets you in person and you're kind of a douche, it all just comes
I get that with
crumbling
politicians.
Down.
When I first met Bob Dole, I couldn't believe what a warm and nice guy he was, and how funny he was. When I met Hillary Clinton, I couldn't believe what a warm and funny and nice lady she is.
Right.
Even when I met Trump, I couldn't believe what a nice guy he was.
Right.
Because the media and the persona is it's just has you thinking a certain thing about somebody, especially like a guy like Bob Dole.
Right.
Or Hillary, when she was the ice
princess. Right. Yeah.
But she's a very warm person.
Yes.
And Trump, by the way, Trump is a very nice guy. He doesn't appear that way.
That's what people say.
It's amazing. But that's like, when you talk to people, you kind of can feel them. But when you're seeing them on TV, and I'm sure it's like that with athletes.
It can be. The challenge they have is, I think for athletes, their true personality, their comfortable personality shines through on social, but they're really a lot of them are introverts. And so when you see them in public, they don't want to talk to you. They don't want to. They're afraid of you, actually, because you're coming at them like a excited cocker spaniel, and they're just like, I need my space. And so what ultimately happens is that the people meeting them is like, well, there's this big loudmouth person online, but in person you have nothing to say. What gives?
But Chuck Barkley he's the real deal.
He is the same person.
He's like that in person.
Yes,
also, because I have met him.
He is what you see is what you get with that one.
And you probably know him, right?
I've never personally met him, but I don't. I have met Shaquille O'Neal, and I assure you that is the same thing.
Oh, is he that way?
He is so much fun and so funny and entertaining. A little frustrating if you're trying to direct him to do something, because he's so big. He just doesn't have to listen to anybody. But what you see is absolutely what you get. And I think as a business owner, as a community leader, I think that's so refreshing that 360 degrees of that human is what you get. And that's where the authenticity.
I think it's easier to live that way too, so you don't have to pre-plan anything. You don't have to think things through. You just kind of
you just show up
and show up.
Right.
Yeah. So it's it's a lot easier to be that way.
It gets exhausting if you feel you have to maintain some sort of aura.
Some image or some persona.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I've gotten, on this show, I've gotten a lot of flack because, like, apparently there's some people who think I have big hair or whatever. But
no, you have nice hair.
Thank you. Today it's very...
I'm from New Jersey.
It's very and you lived in Jersey in the 80s. Oh, my God. A lot of perm. A lot of perm.
No, I'm from Jersey. I'm proud of it. I love New Jersey.
You know, I have spent some quality time in New Jersey. I got lost in Newark once, which was not pleasant. That was rough. But the rest of the time in New Jersey, I'm just always on the turnpike. Mm-hmm. It's just the never-ending turnpike. And I'm from Wyoming, so being on the New Jersey Turnpike, I'm like, this is the seventh circle of hell. This really is. But when you, I absolutely agree. And I think as business owners, and especially as entrepreneurs, especially if you're trying to go out there and get capital and get people to hire you, you feel like you have to fit a certain role. And and if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying just do you, and the opportunities will come.
You want to be professional.
Of course, you can't. You can't run around in a clown suit. But
exactly. So within limits, but generally be yourself. But if you're presenting to an investor, a lender, a customer, you have to, you have to talk the talk,
right,
and do the right things that they want to see.
When you say talk the talk, do you have any feeling? And I mean, I'm very, I've only been doing what I'm doing for 15 years, so I'm a baby. I'm a fetus in my industry. I feel like the business environment, in terms of talking the talk, I feel it's getting more casual. Maybe not in the tech sector as much, but in my world, I feel like business conversations are getting a lot more loosey-goosey. Like it's not as rigid as it used to be.
Yeah,
people are having more of a personality.
I think it's an age thing, it's a generational thing.
Right.
There's a convergence between work and home play.
Right.
And it kind of is coming together, especially among the younger set.
Right.
And I think you're right. I would agree with that.
And I feel it's, a lot of people are very concerned that this more casual business environment is going to hurt business. I think it's going to help business because it brings more community. We're living in a world now where people are trying to kind of undo old injustices.
I think certain industries, like you don't want to be casual in, say, the wealth management.
Right. No, you can't be casual in that.
Trust is like
whatever
the thing.
Right. No.
But I think if businesses are focused on goals, customer goals, and outcomes, you can't go wrong. That's the bottom line. Whether you're casual or less casual or more formal.
Right.
Yeah, but certain industries, you do have to have that formality.
Absolutely.
Certainly the defense industry and dealing with the intelligence community, there's a certain set of protocols and formality that's required. Whenever I go to the Pentagon, I have to get a haircut. I have to wear socks.
I have to wear socks, he says.
But, because you don't want to be too far out of the box,
because then they don't they won't talk to you.
Exactly.
Right, absolutely. I've only been inside the Pentagon in my 15 years in DC. I've only been inside the Pentagon one time, and I wore a skirt that was about mid thigh, and it became a DEFCON 5 situation. Like people were looking at me like, oh, and so yes, there's a protocol that must be adhered to in certain industries, but in others, in the general business community, fleece vests are you walk into. I think 15 years ago, if you would have strolled in a fleece vest, people would have been like, okay.
That's true.
But now today, if you probably could show up to a meeting wearing this outfit right here, and people would not even blink an eye. Blink an eye. Okay. And so there's definitely a shift, and I think social media has played I truly believe that social media has played a massive role in that shift. Yeah. Because we're now communicating more frequently. We're seeing people in their natural habitats more often.
Yeah,
and
a lot of behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so we just have a couple of minutes left. So I'm just dying to know, as a social media consumer, what is one social media trend that you wish would just stop? Just go away.
As a social media consumer?
Yes.
Well, if I don't like something, I won't consume it.
Right.
So I've been unfollowing some of the loudmouths that I see occasionally.
It's getting too much.
It is. There's a lot of noise out there. So
it is.
Luckily we have options. So if you want to be entertained, if you want to be educated, if you want to be
Right.
conduct business, you have different channels for
Right.
that.
Who's your favorite kind of person on social media to watch and consume and keep track of what they're up to?
I love Brian Fanzo. Brian, if you're listening,
he's great.
He's awesome.
Great. Yes.
Tony Robbins, I think.
Yeah, so many people
20
love
years ago, I thought he
him.
was crazy.
Right.
Now I think he's actually calm compared to all these other guys that are out there.
He is kind of the more docile of the bunch, but he's still, his staying power is unbelievable.
Yeah, and his principle, I've read his books, his principles are solid.
Yeah.
They're really solid. And it is grounded in a bunch of research that he's done, in the sense that he's read a lot of books, and he's distilled a lot of the teachings and principles from these books into some simplicity, which I actually agree with most of his stuff.
Yeah.
So I enjoy watching his stuff. I'll watch his YouTube videos. And he makes sense to me today. 20 years ago, he was a little bit too crazy.
Yeah, I would.
Some of the other guys today out there are just out there.
They're a little militant.
I think there's just a lot of talk.
Yeah.
A lot of guys that they're sort of on their way, but they're acting like they know what they're doing.
Right.
And I think they're finding we're all finding our way,
right.
but they are acting more as sort of the gurus.
Right.
It could be borderline irresponsible. Like there's guys out there that have millions of followers. They're saying, "Quit college, go do your startup."
Yeah.
I think it's irresponsible, and you can't do this one size fits all either.
No.
Everything's situational and individual to the person. So
absolutely, that's an excellent point, and I am completely and utterly heartbroken. We are out of time. Thank you so much for braving the DC traffic to get here. Tune in next week where we are going to keep the business and leadership theme kind of rolling along with my dear friend Wong, who will be joining us to talk about some finance.
He's good to follow on social media.
He is. He's great. Great video out today. So thank you for joining us. Follow Tiana on his social media sites. I'm Frances Reimers. Feel free to follow me as well. And thank you and have a good night.
Thank you.